We were really focused on a very quick growth, and so we put a lot of time into it, and our skill sets were very different, and we both put all of what we had into those pieces. We came at it at every angle. Sometimes it was a percentage of revenue, sometimes it was just a flat sum. Sometimes it was like a royalty. There was every option explored, and really we just came to
what does it take to build systems that scale quickly while also remaining adaptable? How do partners find the balance between aligned vision and complementary roles? And how do we continue to grow from past experiences and repurpose them for a better present day? My name is Barrett Young, and this is the Art of Succession podcast. My guest today is Alanna Thomas, the founder behind Aligned Recruitment and Thomas Media Agency. Today, we're going to hear how Alanna quickly grew a company to profitability, brought in a partner, and then sold her remaining shares to that partner to exit the business. Alanna, welcome to the Art of Succession.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So the company that you sold is Aligned Recruitment, correct?
You got it.
Okay, so walk me through just what led up to the founding of that, and then we'll get into like the exit and all that kind of stuff.
Of course. So I actually started my early career in recruitment. I did it for about 4 or 5 years at a couple different agencies, mostly some in-house recruiting. My career took a slightly different turn into project management and entrepreneurship in the operational space, but I really always kept my ties in recruitment. When I was doing entrepreneurial or operational support for my clients, they always had a need to hire. So I kept my toes in that industry, even when I wasn't doing it in corporate. So I had my first business, my coaching and, fractional COO business, you could call it, for about 3 years when I really decided I wanted to start something new, something at a larger scale where I wasn't the sole owner operator and I could have a team that was doing the delivery side of the business. And recruitment just truly seemed profitable. It seemed easy because I knew it so well. And there really is just such a bad rap recruiters get in the industry. And I just really wanted to be a nice recruiter, like someone who wouldn't take advantage of you, a company that was just a pleasure to work with. So I really wanted to change it in that way. And so we started, I started the company in April of 2023. Fast forward a few months into August of that year is when I brought on my business partner. She's actually someone I worked with previously in the recruiting industry when I was doing that my full time. Yeah.
And was this recruiting for other COOs, or is this like the C-suite roles, or what was the recruiting there around?
Great question. When we first started the business, we didn't have a niche. We really just kept it open. However, my business partner was coming from her background, which was largely focused in the tech space. And so because her role was going to be primarily focused in sales and revenue, it just made sense to focus in on the network that she had largely built already. So when she came in, we then had a niche of tech recruitment and really leaned into that pretty specifically. But, even in doing that, I would say half of our clients weren't in the tech space at all. Once you're good at what you do, you can specialize, but just people really want the service. So.
Okay. I gotcha. And this is permanent placement recruiting that you were working in?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different models of, working with a recruitment partner, but when we would hire, they would just hire internally their person. Yeah. So it wasn't staffing or temporary in any way.
I gotcha. Okay. And was this like regional or was this remote? And what time frame was you said 2023, so this was last year?
Yeah. So it was built and sold within 13 months. So we were an entirely remote company, and we really believe in that as a business model. Again, thinking back to profitability, that's a huge part of our value system, is not going into debt or just being really intentional with how we spend. So we often would align with clients who also had a remote either piece to their hiring component, or they were also a fully remote company. It was never an exclusion. There are definitely moments where it makes sense, right, to hire people in person, but a lot of people aligned with that value as well.
Okay, gotcha. So when you started this a little bit over a year ago, last spring, Did you plan on the quick uh, profitability in the acquisition, or did you plan on running a recruitment agency?
Yeah, I never planned to leave. There were a lot of reasons why it was the best decision for her and I to part ways at that point. And it actually wasn't, thankfully, a bad split. I think
Contentious. Gotcha.
I think in most partnerships, if it's a 50-50, when you hear about it, you usually hear about it because it ended poorly. But for the same reasons that we were drawn to each other, we were both dynamic leaders. We both loved basically the idea of being a CEO. It didn't make sense for there to be two CEOs, and neither of us, could come to that. So I envisioned having that business for the rest of my life, for the majority of my professional career, but it really ended up being a blessing for her and for I that it parted when it did.
Okay, gotcha. Um, did you plan on bringing her in once you hit profitability? Because you had about 4 months there where it was just you.
I wasn't. She actually had reached out to me and said, "Hey, Lana, I'm thinking of starting a recruiting company." She had known I was doing operational work, but she didn't yet know that I had started my own business. And she said, "Could I pick your brain, or, do you have any thoughts about that?" And I was like, I actually have that business model right now. Would you want to be a part of that? She and I both are moms of. She has 4 kids. I have 2. They're little, and so to be able to do all the things myself wasn't really fun, and I was sacrificing in places I didn't want to. So she was able to share the load of that, and we both were able to kind of do the things that we were both really great at.
Gotcha. Okay. How did you how did you grow profitability from a brand new company so quickly? You said you had done this in corporate. Do those contacts stick around, or how did that work?
Yeah, we just both were really specific in our career to be intentional in the way that we worked and to have lasting relationships. Separately and individually, we had good partnerships with people in our career just in general. And so when we were coming into this business, there were a lot of relationships that we could tap into. And we did. We knocked on the door of all of them and said, "Hey, do you want to work with us?" Most of which, as it typically goes, says, "Hey, we're not hiring right now." But those that said no at the beginning, some of them said yes later. Some of them instantly said yes. So at the very beginning, that was absolutely our revenue strategy, was to say, who do we know that wants to work with us? That only gets you so far. You only know so many people, but it absolutely was a focus at the beginning.
And then word of mouth took it from there.
Yeah, it was a lot of LinkedIn, truthfully, like a lot
Okay.
of, "Hey, I want to know you. Do you want to know me? Let's talk about what we do." But yeah, it was a very intentional, refined, ever changing sales process that she really truthfully led. It was not the thing that I wanted to do at that time. So that was like her biggest focus in the day to day.
Okay. Because you said her focus was tech, but I also heard sales in there. So she also had a little bit of chief marketing experience or sales experience there too.
Oh, great question. So when I say she was in tech, she was in tech recruitment. Her contacts, right? So she was mostly, in her experience, a leader in the recruitment industry, and so she just had those contacts that came with her. But most of her experience was delivery and recruitment and strategy, and so stepping into sales was new for her. But largely there's so much similarity between recruitment and sales and leadership that tapping into those relationships was kind of the organic next piece of that.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, I mean, you said it yourself. Recruiters can be irritating,
Yeah.
and it sounds like the two of you managed to avoid getting that label early on. I mean, LinkedIn is just full of people in my inbox telling me all these people they have that want to work for me. How did you guys so quickly get that going and not come off as spammy, not come off as like this is just automated messaging sent to a billion CPAs at once?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we did have a model of recruitment called RPO, or that's the shorthand for it, which is recruitment process outsourcing. So the value of our partnership was found in our partnership. It wasn't found in our results or in our candidates that were hired. So we were as much a strategic partner in your entire holistic hiring approach as much as we were filling those roles that you had available at the time. So A lot of recruiters will come to you, like you said, with candidates, or they're just trying to be the first to fill the job. And that was not a partnership that we were really excited about. It was an option for companies who just really felt that that's the way that they wanted to work with us. But primarily, our signature service was this partnership model where we just would kind of come in and take over the entire process of hiring. And so that value is just, that much more attractive to the right kind of partner. You obviously have to be at some sort of level from a revenue perspective to have that need and to have an ongoing hiring need. But for the most part, it saved you a lot of money. The cost was much lower than it would be if we were just fighting to fill that position first for you. Plus, you got our brain and our strategy on a daily basis, so it worked for everyone.
I got you. I've seen a little bit of this model. So you're saying you're not working with a one-off placement. You're working with a company that's looking to hire a person a month, two people a month on an ongoing basis. And probably you guys come into the company and say, okay, what positions are you looking to fill? And you're helping write those job postings. You're helping to say, we're going to post it here, 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 and here. Am I gathering that correctly?
Yeah, it's full cycle recruiting. So exactly what you said, where you will write the job descriptions, you'll do the intake with a hiring manager, we'll help guide the best practices of what to be looking for because we'll have such a feel for the talent in the market. So we can really help advise what's attainable, right? If someone says, I want to hire someone who's worth $100,000 for $5,000, right? We can just say what's realistic or not. And yeah, just advise in that entire process and then also execute in actually finding you that person you're looking for.
I got you. Okay. So, what's your partner's name or your former partner's name so that I'm not just saying your partner?
Yeah, Julia.
Julia. Okay. So you and Julia are both, you said similar roles or similar personalities and everything like that. At the time that you brought her in, it was just the two of you. Did you guys ever grow beyond that with other subs or employees or anything?
Yeah, so my husband, ironically, is an IT recruiter. So he he was always kind of in the background, ready to help us if we needed it. And then as she was bringing in people from her network, she also had people in her network that were recruiters as well. So as soon as she came on and the client load came in with her support and the revenue, we also added recruiters to the team. So we did do a bit of the delivery at the beginning, but the more that we grew, yeah, the more it made sense to just have a team do that.
I gotcha. So it started with you, and then she was employee number two, and then how big did it get to by the time you exited?
By the time we left, or I left, I think we had 6 people total.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's what I'm wondering is if it was just you and her, and uh, 8 months into partnership, you're like, I want to go launch something else. What would cause somebody to say, well, I owe you, I want to buy out your portion of the value of what we've built here in such a short time? You either have to have systems in place so that it's not just her labor doing the job of both of you. But it sounds like you guys were building that pretty rapidly then.
Yeah, we were really focused on a very quick growth. And so we put a lot of time into it, and our skill sets were very different. And we both put all of what we had into those pieces. My skill set really was focused on the operations of the business,
Okay.
obviously being a fractional COO for other businesses. I really just cared about how we do what we do, and we do it the best and the most efficiently. And so, I, for all intents and purposes, I set up the business so that she could drive it and continue to grow it. And I would, change that model to grow with it.
So operations is not my favorite. I am more on the visionary side. I like the vision and here's where we're going. And then my partner in this business, she's much more the operations. You specifically, it sounds like, set up operations that could run without you.
Yes, that's always the goal, as much automation as possible. And I will say that there can be too much automation if you don't have your hand in the business closely and you don't see how you're doing what you're doing and care about it deeply as an owner or an executive. I think there's a huge gap there that will be very obvious over time in terms of your client satisfaction and retention. So I know that my job is always done best when I have a client retention rate of 100%. So that is always kind of the driving force of what we do.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, from day one, that was your purpose, is set this company up to run as much as possible without me in the day to day making it run.
Exactly. Yeah. How can I remove myself, make other people, just really shine in their role and do what they're so great at, while also having clients that never want to leave us.
Gotcha. Okay. And when your partner, or when you got bought out, did they already have your replacement on the operations side, or was it just ready to go without Alanna in there?
Yeah, we did have one girl in our team who I was mentoring a bit to take over because she just had a general interest in operations, and she just was an amazing human and talented in a lot of different ways. And so we tapped into that. And so the natural replacement, I don't think she does exactly what I do currently, but a lot of it, like we talked about, was set up so that it was much more maintaining what was already set up versus starting it from the beginning. Yeah.
Before we get into the acquisition piece, you said that you had known your partner from previous companies that you guys have both worked in corporate, and then she was ready and you guys talked. How long did that process take for you guys to decide we don't just want to be peers consulting with each other? We want to do this partnership.
It took a matter of weeks because the similarities between us were that we both were very mission focused. And so once we decided we wanted to do something, we wanted to do it. And she and I just both love to make decisions and make them quickly. So I was like, hey, do you want to be a partner? And she said, yes. Basically, she had a lot of offers at the time. She was in between her last job and was kind of looking for the next thing. And again, it was a total surprise because she didn't know I had this company. So it definitely was soul searching. It was tapping into all options. And really, ultimately, it just was a pretty simple choice when, we saw everything sort of come together and we saw what it could be. It was just not looking back from there.
Okay. At that point, this is 4 months in. You said when you started it, you planned to work there forever. At that point, 4 months in, when you brought her in, was there any indication or inclination in the back of your mind that you might not want to be here forever? Or was it still, we're going to run this thing to get together forever at that point?
Yeah, it wasn't until weeks before I parted that I really thought that I wouldn't be there for the long haul.
Gotcha. Okay. So together, the two of you, August, a year ago at this point, recording, um, said we're going to we're going to set up this agency, this recruitment agency, and we're going to run it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Did she buy in having you've been in this for 4 months, or was it sweat equity? How did she come in as half owner?
Yeah,
I assume half owner. So.
Yeah, yep, we were a 50-50 partnership.
Okay.
I did not ask her to buy in, mostly because the client base that we had at the time was small. And, I was doing everything I could from a sales perspective, but I knew that she would largely increase our client base pretty quickly. And that in and of itself was kind of like a buy-in. So yeah, it didn't feel worth it to me.
I gotcha. Okay. So sweat equity there. And so you guys worked together for about 9 months or so. And then you said something cropped up and you're like, I want to go do something else. Talk to me about the success of you guys, what you were able to multiply. I mean, obviously you brought in, you had a team of 6 there, but it wasn't you times her equals 2 times a growth.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, I guess, the complementing roles before we start getting into kind of the conflicting roles there.
Yeah. So the complementing roles, I mentioned briefly, was that we both were really ambitious in how big we wanted the company to be. And so every time we had some sort of milestone achieved, we were focused on the next. We had a small little moment of, yay, we did it. And mostly our brain was, okay, yep, what can we do now? And how can we get better? And I think also similarly, we really just were committed to excellence in everything that we did. So she was committed to excellence in her revenue process and the leadership overseeing the delivery piece. And I was just committed to excellence in every way. Right. And so our reputation was good. Like, people liked working with us. Our retention rate was excellent. The only reason that people parted with us was because they had no more roles to hire. They literally had everything filled and they weren't going to hire for the foreseeable future. And so By the time I left, that was the only reason, is that they just didn't hire anymore. And so on all fronts, we were succeeding. Um, I'm not sure what their revenue was from the time that she came in to what it is about now. Being 1 year from when she came in, but we definitely were on the path of a 7-figure business in the first year. So, I'm not sure what it is at the moment, but if nothing changed, from what she was able to do, I'm sure that they're there at this point.
I got you. Yeah, so a lot of people will say don't hire a partner who duplicates you, and we're going to get to that in a second. But in this case, you are saying you need to hire a partner who's on the same page in some things as you. And for you guys, there was nobody hesitating or saying, maybe now's the time to take our foot off the gas. It was very much both of you were aligned in the vision of where you
Mm-hmm.
saw this company go.
Yeah, we both have just the same values in general. And the company's name that I had decided was Aligned Recruitment, and she and I just at the core really care about alignment for our clients, but also just in general. And so she and I are so focused on that value that we would have never started if we didn't feel like this would be a lifetime thing. It was kind of a surprise to both of us that wasn't,
Okay.
I should say. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So what caused your heart to start heading somewhere else?
Well, in her sales process, she really, felt the power of having that CEO title. And so, that was something that I didn't really care about from hey, you have this and I don't have that. But what I did care about is that whatever title I did have, whatever we came up with, it wouldn't be lesser than a CEO. And there really is no equivalent. There really is no, yeah. Yeah. So we called ourselves co-founders, which was true. And she called herself the CEO, and I basically just kept my title co-founder. And we were really searching in that for months. And that ultimately was the push and pull there at the end. It was, we both want this title because we both feel like we're gifted and have earned that, so to speak, like
Mm-hmm.
her from a revenue standpoint and me from a formation of the company standpoint. And in that, there just really was no resolution. And it really wasn't about the title at the end of the day. It was more about, hey, our the fun that we have here is the same fun. Like, we both want to do the same thing and lead and make decisions. And it's stepping on each other unintentionally, at the end.
Okay. So you both were aligned in the vision, but there would be some things where it would be just slightly diverging just a little bit. And it would come down to, okay, well, we're going to go your direction this time, and then we're going to take this tack the next time. Is that what I'm hearing? Just gradually that alignment started to look a little bit more and more different.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I think there were just moments of, hey, I don't want to get on a call with you and ask you your opinion. I just want to make a decision and run with it. And we both felt that in our own right. We both just loved to lead and loved to have vision, and to be able to sort of get approval is ultimately what it started to feel like from the other person. And the approval was kind of what we didn't want. It's the reason you start a business, where you don't have to get somebody's permission for something. And so it just organically became the opposite of what we were looking to do and be a CEO.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'd like to do this, but I'm going to run this by my partner quickly rather than just, yes, we're going to do this.
Yeah. And then there were moments, right, where we weren't on the same page, even though for the most part we were. And then it's like, what do you do with that? And how
Who
often?
breaks that tie 50-50?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Standstill.
Yep. Okay. I gotcha. So was it you that first started thinking about the split, or I know there's a lot of conversations around that, but did
Mhm.
you have another idea that you're like, I think I could exit and you could run with this because I'm starting to get interested in this other idea?
Yeah, no, she had approached me about
Okay.
buying me out of the business. She said, hey, I really like to be CEO, and so do you, and so maybe this doesn't make sense anymore. What are your thoughts? Maybe I buy you out of this. And like I said, I thought I was going to work there forever. Obviously, I had first started the company But it was really attractive, that conversation, because of those just little moments of, I don't know how this can continue to work if we're going to do this for 20 years and we're a year into it and already feeling this. It's probably wise to split now instead of going further on and maybe having a relationship that does become contentious. So I was so protective of wanting to have peace and harmony, and not, make things unnecessarily hard, that it felt like, okay, if we're feeling this now, we should probably lean into that.
How did you see the bright side? How did you start to say, maybe Julia's right on this? Maybe it is time for me to go. And how long did that take? And what was that process for you?
Yeah. Well, I have a faith and I'm a pretty prayerful person. And so that was something that I was already sifting through and seeking in my personal life. Like, how do we reconcile? And so it felt like divine intervention at this moment that it was brought up to me. And so just from the beginning, it was just peace, really, just feeling like, okay, this is a sign, right? That this chapter is coming to a close. And this, was already my second business. And I felt really confident at this point that running a business wasn't something that I couldn't do again. Yet obviously, you don't want to start all over. The money coming in is great and the client base is great. But, it's not like recruitment was my passion and that I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. It's that I loved the business model. And so I knew that there was another business model that I could love just as much. Moving on.
I gotcha. So you already had it enough, just frustration and feeling that tension in your soul, that it was like it hurt, but then it was like, no, this is right. Somebody has to get out,
Yep.
or not get out that way, but this is the resolution that you had already been praying for and trying to figure out. So,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So had you already had so what's your next business after getting acquired out of the recruitment agency?
Yeah, so I had always wanted to start a social media management business. And so that is what we founded, or I should say, I founded. I say we because we have a team of 7 people right now. So it
Oh,
feels
wow.
very much like we founded the business together. But
Since June, that's when you were acquired?
Since June, yeah.
Wow.
It's been so fun, so absolutely so fun. And it absolutely is the place that I was meant to be in. And so that, we're a full-fledged media company. So we do podcast editing and, kind of anything you think of, videos and websites. But really our bread and butter, the signature service people come to for us, is social media management.
I gotcha. And so that had been in the back of your head for a long time. So your partner comes to you with this idea and you immediately jump to that? Or were there any questions you had to answer or figure out if now is the right time?
Yeah, I mean, my spouse Greg, he would very much prefer that I just had a job. He is not an entrepreneur. He's like, hey, can you just make a normal amount of money and just be stable for a second? But
work a normal number of hours.
Yeah.
See you on nights and weekends, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just not who I am. And so my polite answer was no, thank you. And he got on board eventually, and I'm so grateful that he did, because for me to just go back to corporate would just be the opposite of who I am.
Okay. Was there ever any thought when your partner approached you to buy you out that you would become an employee there and she would continue on as CEO, or you knew if she's going to be 100% owner, I need to go be an owner somewhere else?
Oh yeah, I would have never wanted that, and she wouldn't have either. I don't think that you make the original founder of a company beneath you. I think for the rest of the team, the optics feel weird from moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard to step back from that role. I do know, huge companies, the founder doesn't end up being the CEO by the time they, get to a certain level.
Yeah.
But small companies, it is very, well, who has the final say? I know
Mm-hmm.
they're the owner, but you're the founder. So,
Feels
okay.
weird. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So you jump into social media. How did you build that team so fast? Did you, again, contacts from prior corporate?
Yeah, this was actually for my first business. So when I did the fractional COO work as intensely as I did, I also taught people how to do what I did. And so I had many people interning for me, or that I mentored, or just a following on social media. where I shared what I knew, and I just had people that were eager to work with me moving forward. So I would have hired those people at Aligned Recruitment. They just didn't have the recruiting skill set. Theirs was much more operationally focused. And like I said, in operations, you tend to do a lot of things like hiring, while these people tend to do a lot of things like social media for a lot of their clients. So they had a lot of extensive experience already, things that would just quickly be refined by our internal processes. And I was just lucky enough that they wanted to come on board.
Okay, gotcha. How long did the process of buying you out of Aligned Recruitment take?
There definitely was a negotiation period over a couple months. And then the contract piece, just lawyers, talking back and forth, lawyer talk, that probably added another month. So maybe 3 months in total.
I gotcha. Okay. And how did you guys come up with a value for that business for your 50% share?
That's a great question. We came at it at every angle. Sometimes it was a percentage of revenue. Sometimes it was just a flat sum. Sometimes it was like a royalty. There was every option explored. And really, we just came to a sum that we knew the business could afford, really is what it came down to. Obviously, the business doesn't buy me out. Julia buys me out. But it was just the reality of, if you're leaving at this point, you contributed to this much money, essentially, right? Your talents contributed to where it is at this point. So it really just was, okay, what's the profit right now and what can that swing?
Gotcha. Okay. So it was more based off of the existing cash flow of the business, what it would be able to do over a set number of years, or because you guys was Julia also anti-debt, like you started the company?
Yeah, we both are very anti-debt. Yeah, just for our families and in business. And so we really wanted a clean break. And that's why we decided to do a lump sum, just for each other to feel freedom. And we just did that by the time that the contract process was over.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So there's not a 3-year buyout or anything like that. It was agreed. This is the date. This is the amount I'm bringing to the table, and best of luck to you.
Yep. Good luck. Yep.
Okay. That took 3 months of that process. Had you already started the groundwork for the next business then at that point, or were you waiting for that seed money or?
Yeah. Well, because I'm so anti-debt, in business, there's very little money I put into Thomas Media Agency at the very beginning. I just, waited for the revenue. So no, I did the free trials of all the systems and I just worked it for as long as I could until we needed to increase, those systems, and just went with it as we increased with our clients. So no, I did start the working in the back end. It was mostly, branding and mission and figuring out the niche and those back end decisions. And then recently is when we went to market.
Gotcha. So you didn't have any customers that you brought on that you were working with during that time?
No, all of our customers are new. And we specialize in this business in health and wellness. It's not like we specialize in tech as well. So especially tapping into Aligned Recruitment wouldn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. Okay. How did you plan that launch?
Oh man, I am a messy action sort of person. So I just sort of went for it. I was like, hey, we're here. Do you want to hire us? And truly it was that messy. And I do think that has worked historically in my favor, that people very much see a human element and it's not so methodical and tailored and perfect in the way that you come to market. It's just like, hey, like we really want to do a good job for you. And so as soon as I had made the decisions of what we're doing, I got the website up as quickly as I could. And it's very much a beginner website. I have my in-house person, website designer, fixing it, all the things that I probably did wrong. But I don't think you have to be perfect to start. And so I just went for it.
I mean, this will change, but this is the company you want to run for the rest of your life at this point?
This is my third company and I'm 29. So I'm betting that something else will pop up at some point.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I love what we do.
And based off of the prior experience, your goal, do you have plans of a future partner, or is it going to be 100% you? What are your thoughts on that right now?
I am not against having a partner in the future. At this point, I don't want one, like in this moment,
Okay. But you're
because
not turned
yeah,
off to the idea completely. You're like, the right partner comes along, it could work out.
yeah, I've seen it work for bigger businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it work for small ones too. And so I don't think it's impossible. It's just a lot of, it has to be, again, I think divine intervention for it to make sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, would you be looking for, yeah, I mean, you would be looking for something different, obviously, to avoid some of those same issues. But I guess, what have you learned about yourself and what your must-haves and your would be nice to haves kind of are when you're
Hmm.
talking about scaling with a partner like that now at this point?
Yeah. You know, with aligned recruitment, I just so didn't want to do sales. And the reason I didn't want to do it, I think, is because I had just so much misperception of what that meant. And in this agency that I own now, it's obviously all on me. And so I had no choice but to lean into it. And the skill set that I have now is vastly different than it is a year ago and what I could offer to aligned recruitment. And so I no longer feel the need to have people who have that skill set around me because I've just, worked to develop that myself. I never want to sacrifice my time at work to impact the time that I have with my children. So if it gets to a point where I'm just putting too much on me, I'll either have a co-founder or a fractional COO, like stuff that I used to do for the business, or just really elevate the people that are already around me to take on some things and to train them. But those things that I feel like I was lacking before, now I just think it's a matter of learning, not a matter of I need to find someone else.
I got you. So I mean, you just alluded to it there. A lot of people would look at that, and if there hadn't been a payout at the end, they would have said, "Well, that was a year waste of time. You started a company and you only worked there for 14 months, and then you moved on." But you would say, "No, I learned so much." So it sounds like you developed that sales skill there. How else did you see yourself grow from that experience of founding a company and exiting a company?
Yeah, I just started to take myself so much more seriously. In the first company that I had, I was everything, the owner operator, and I had some virtual assistants, but it really was, I had to do all the things and I just wanted the control over everything too. And then with aligned recruitment, it was me and then a team. And really, the difference there, I could have scaled my first business into an agency similarly, but it was having the number of clients. Really, I capped out about 10 in my first at one time at least. And if I could keep bringing in more clients, there's no reason to keep growing the business. And so I just am not afraid of going bigger this time around and thinking bigger than I used to.
I got you. Okay. How did you scale so fast? Because everybody I talk to says you can't hire anybody right now. I mean, you had subcontractor contacts from the previous company,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, bring onboarding 7 employees in 2 months while also onboarding brand new clients all at the same time. And then you're saying you actually have time for your children and your husband. And so how? I mean,
Yeah.
you're a systems person, so give me the secret of those systems.
It's so funny because once you do it for one business, I'm not saying that everyone doesn't have different goals, but it really is the same. Like I come into every business that I work with from a CEO perspective and I have the same process, same everything, and you just tweak it a little bit depending on what they want the end goal to be. And so when I started Thomas Media Agency, my internal systems for employee onboarding, I had it in my brain from my first business, from my second business, and I probably did the entire everything in a week, everything to set up the business. And I was just like, ready to go. Here we go. And so, I mean, I've done it for 100 businesses now for COO work. So you just learn the pattern. But I think really that's the value of an operations person because someone who doesn't think that way operationally probably could take a year doing the same thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And did it help that you were bringing in different roles? Those 7 people weren't duplication, I assume, or what? Was there?
there definitely is some overlap. All of them have their knowledge and their own experience with social media, and so they can help. Others are really expert in that area. Others are like our signature website designer. Another is an amazing podcast editor. So they all have their unique strengths. And actually, that does make it more complicated because I have to have specific processes built out and specific training built out for different roles, right? So if everyone was a social media manager, it would be vastly easier to set up the systems it needs for the company. But we just want to do more than that.
Okay. Gotcha. I mean, I'm fascinated by this scaling because, we bring in an employee and it seems to wreck everything for, most companies that I see, they bring in an employee and it takes a year sometimes for those employees to get up to profitability and, everything. You're hiring for positions that you haven't defined yet, really. I mean, you have an idea, but how much of that is you as the CEO acting as operations, defining these roles, and how much of that were you relying on their expertise to define those new processes within this new company?
Yeah. So for everyone that came in with me as the first person, so our first girl who did social media management, I relied on her probably 50-50 of my brain and her brain to come together. And then the next social media training we did for our next person, I got her input. I said, where are we missing? And you can only do that so many times. I think eventually it's just going to get complicated and unnecessary because it's going to work itself out. But the nature of every business is that you always have to be changing what you do. And so it's just a matter of like a weekly or a monthly audit and say, are we missing anything? Is there anything that could be better in what we're doing? Like this free resource we have on our website, is that the best that we really could give someone right now? And so it's just a general principle and a value that we are growing in every way. And so it's just one of those things that comes naturally to everything else.
Okay. Awesome. If you could talk a little bit about revenue or number of clients or something, how quickly did that scale too?
With Thomas Media Agency. Yeah. So in our first 2 weeks of putting it out there that we have a business and we offer services, we had about 10 sales calls of people that knew me or that I had started to connect with. And our packages at the minimum are $3,500 a month every month for our partnership for social media. More than half of those closed. I'm trying to I honestly don't know our revenue right now because I have sales calls every day. And so I'm
it's
trying
changing on a daily basis and you're only 2 months in. There's not much to compare it to.
Not much to compare it to, but I would say we're doing as well as Aligned Recruitment did, which is a great feeling.
Wow. Okay. So 60% close rate on your first initial sales calls. What is that? How did you decide on those prices? Having not really been in this business for a number of years, and even back then it wasn't this exact business. You didn't undersell yourself. That's great.
Yeah. I very much care about high quality content. And I think there's no point of social media if you're going to do it any other way. So just throwing a reel or an image up there is the opposite of what our values are. And so in order to do what we need to do, it takes time. So I really was so intentional to break down every single step that someone would have to go through to make one reel on our team for our client. I said, how much effort really does that take and how much time, how many clients could they manage? And the answer is very few because we're such a white glove service. So we had the prices to match that.
Gotcha. Okay. So you started with capacity. What do we want that to look like? And then divide it by something to get your rate, and said, we can only handle 20 clients right now. So it has to be this in order to pay for all the costs. Gotcha. Okay. Who is your target client for that? How did you come up with that decision?
Yeah. Truth, I want to sit here and say, oh, it's because I love this industry so much, but it really was a business decision. We support health and wellness, specifically online professionals in this space. The first reason for that was they need content almost more than any other industry for their businesses, especially if they're online. It's just so necessary for them to stay relevant, especially because trends change and there's just so much support they need in that perspective. So first it was that. Second, it was ease of creating the content. It's just that much easier to create content for them than it would be for, I don't know, restaurants, right? And just like going on site and filming like who does that? I don't know how you would do that, right?
As a
And
CPA in charge of marketing, I'm like, man, I wish I had a visual profession.
yeah,
If I could have just leaned into strength coaching, it's easy to come up with videos for that. So
yeah, exactly,
I totally
exactly.
understand. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, they just need to be able to afford us. So it really came down to those three things.
I gotcha. Okay. Um, and what does that package look like? I mean, how white glove is the service?
Mm, very white glove. There really is a strategic approach for any reel that you want to put out there to make it go viral. And I'm not going to say that every piece of content we make for our clients goes viral, but there are so many very, very little things that you can do to increase that chance, to go from like, hey, there's no chance to, hey, maybe this actually is going to get 1 million views because we did every little thing so well. And even the difference between 1 word to 2 words is that difference maker of going viral. And so you really want to be very intentional. And we have a Reels package specifically for that. You can make images and carousels, which, those swipe images for those who aren't sure what that is. And you should have maybe 1 or 2 of those a month, but largely 95% of your content should be videos. And so, that's our bread and
Specifically
butter.
Instagram.
TikTok and Instagram. Yeah. If
Okay.
you're not afraid of TikTok.
Okay. Do you guys do long form, or do you guys have that as part of your strategy too? Or
We do, yes. So we also do podcast editing, video editing up to 90 minutes. Just, if you need videos like training videos or anything else created for you. Yeah, it's just not the thing that people usually come to us for, but it's the thing that they realize they need to complete their marketing package eventually.
I think we're going to start to wrap up here, but you said you're a mom of 2 and you're a founder of a 2-month-old business with 7 employees and, you know, quick profitability, sales calls every day, and you're an operations person. How do you get to the end of the day and decide? I mean, is it just a matter of I'm not going to work more than X number of hours today? How do you balance all that?
I work about 30 hours a week and I don't feel
Okay.
like truly. And I don't feel like I need more than that. I don't know if it's just oh, I do know. I know it's because we set up everything so intentionally. Like everything we looked at, we said, is it profitable? Does it make sense? Is it worth our time? And there's just nothing that we do that doesn't have a reason for it. So Fridays, I either hang out with my kids or I have a day for myself and I recharge and I'm ready for the weekend to be a family weekend and groceries are done and everything's ready. So Fridays are my me days. Monday through Thursdays are my give it everything for 8 hours and feel really good about what you put on the table for those days.
That's awesome. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad.
I was expecting like I only work 45 hours or I only work 5 days a week. I stop on the weekends kind of thing. But you're like
Yeah.
30 hours from the gate. So
So funny.
that's awesome. So I mean that has to force you to hire when it's uncomfortable though, right? I mean, you're at 7 employees 2 months in. Some of those hires had to be like, I'm going to trust that there's going to be revenue here.
Yeah, I don't hire unless we already have the contracts to speak for that. And so because I'm so anti-debt, I'm like, okay, I want to get paid this much. I want you to get paid this much. How many clients do we need for that? And there's always that next step, right? So if our cap is a social media manager with 5 clients, they might have 6 or 7 up until I close a couple more and then we hire another full-time person. So there's always some flexibility there, and I appreciate my team for doing that. But yeah, you just have to trust that what you're doing is working. And if you show up every day with integrity and putting your absolute best foot forward, as I do with these sales calls, I'm not worried that we won't have the money to support that.
Okay. Do your managers get paid then as a percentage of the number of clients that they work with?
So everyone's different. We actually have our website designers in Croatia. So her, the compensation with us is vastly different than the girl who lives in my city that, is a full-time employee. So it's all different, but usually I'll hire someone either part-time for a certain number of clients or full-time for a certain number. And there's not a lot of in between for the part-time, at least, because I'm really protective of honoring that time limit.
Gotcha. Okay. But I mean, you have somebody that has to manage 6 or 7 clients. How do you keep them from saying, no, I can handle 7, give me 8, I can take 9, rather than say, no, you told me 5, you're at 7 now. That means I have to hire somebody and take that revenue of 2 of those people away from you. How do you balance that with the capacity and the honesty of employees?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good clarifying question. So they don't get paid more for more clients that they're working with. So they're either part-time or full-time. And it hasn't really been an issue yet, truthfully. Like everyone just says, okay, I'm either part-time or I'm full-time and I have this number of employees. I first hire people for character and I then hire for skill. So I don't think hopefully, if I continue to do that well, then we'll be in a position where people are vindictive or like that specific about what they're contributing and what that looks like for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not at the point yet. And you hope that you would have open conversations with them where they're like, why is she hiring again? Why can't we get paid more?
Yeah.
It's not gotten to that point yet. They're honest with you about what they need and what they can handle and everything. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, Alanna, I really appreciate this perspective. My podcast is typically more focused on the buyer, but it is always interesting to hear the seller side and what would cause somebody to be ready to walk away. And in your case, not walk away to retirement, but walk away to what's next. So that it's been a great conversation. I appreciate that. So I do rapid fire list of questions at the end of my episodes. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So lightning round, just a sentence and a half. Go through a number of questions, get to know you a little bit better. So coffee or tea, and how do you like it?
Coffee with as much sugar as possible.
Any preferred flavor?
Anything at Starbucks that's not actually coffee.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Sugar drink with a shot of coffee.
Yep.
All right. Pie or cake, and do you have a preferred type?
Apple pie every day.
Okay. Apple pie with ice cream or without?
Oh, all the ice cream. Yeah. As much sugar as I can get. That's a theme here.
Gotcha. Okay. What is a common belief among entrepreneurs that you would want to challenge?
Oh, I would want to challenge the idea that you have to sacrifice every day to build something great. Sometimes you can just have a balance for everything.
Okay, great. What is your favorite holiday and why?
Christmas, without a doubt. My love language is gifts. I like to give and to get, and so it's just a day that I feel real loved.
Okay, great. How old are your 2 kids?
5 months and 20 months. We're feeling it.
Oh man, this next Christmas is going to be awesome.
Yep. Crazy.
So you don't sleep. Awesome. Nope. Are you a morning person or a night person? And do you have a routine other than diapers and feeding and stuff like that? When you get a moment to yourself.
Get a second. I'm like a 10 a.m. person. So I don't know. I'm neither. I'm a forced morning person because, that's the only time where I get a second to myself. So I'll wake up at 5, but not because I'm happy about it.
Gotcha. It's because that's when you can squeeze it in. Yep. Okay. What is one thing that you would want your successor, just somebody you mentor or somebody in your company now, something that they would look at you and say, this is what I learned from Alanna? What would that thing be?
I'll probably sound like a broken record here, but I hope that they think that everything I did was done with a purpose and a reason. And whatever that reason is, that's fine. But it was done with something in mind.
Gotcha. Okay. Where are you finding creativity right now?
I went to school for interior design. It was my first degree, and I don't get to use that ever except in my own home. So as much as I can shift things around and spend money that my husband doesn't want me to spend, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's my wife. I'm like, do we really need another lampshade?
She's like, yes, always.
How many pillows? We have more pillows we're getting rid of than we have. So, yeah, gotcha. I mean, this is an obvious question, but what do you have coming up in the next year at Thomas Media that's got you excited?
Man, hopefully
Besides your 1 year anniversary.
besides that, right? Man, hopefully the $1 million mark. That's the goal. That's the dream. But truly, money is only money. The $1 million would only represent that there's a lot of people that see excellence in what we do. So that's the dream, really.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on here, Alanna. I've really appreciated this conversation. It's opened my eyes on a couple things. It's remarkable what you've done, and I just appreciate you being on here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barrett. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Well, because I've got so much going on, you can obviously check out thomasmediaagency.com is our website, and it's also our Instagram, TikTok handle. And then that girl, Alanna Thomas, is my podcast and my coaching stuff. So you'll find me there.
Great. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.